To go if you are, JB. Well, good
We are
morning,
good to
and
go,
I guess
Mr.
I
Cooper.
should. Okay, thanks you, JB. Well, look, good morning or good afternoon to the rest of you. It depends on what part of the country that you're in, and I also hope that your weather is a little forgiving. I know that right now I actually am in New Orleans today, and I know that in different parts of the country it's getting pretty cold and a little brisk out there, I guess. So thanks for joining us today. I know that your time is valuable, and the fact that you're willing to share this time with us is really, really an honor. One of the things that I know about our industry is it seems like no matter which way I turn, it seems like car counts always seem to be a really super hot topic no matter where you go. And I have to tell you, John Burkhauser, who's the Director of Education, by the way, for Bolt-On Technology, this is a guy that really is, I've learned a lot about JB over the past few years. He's an industry expert in many, 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 many different ways. He really is. And to add to that, I'm sure all that have ever heard JB speak in the past will agree. He's an absolute pleasure to listen to. He has this uncanny ability to educate people, keep us engaged, keep us entertained, and do it all in a way that really makes it enjoyable. So anyways, when it comes to technology in the service space and the impact that it could really have on your business, I really can't think of anyone that is more knowledgeable or cares more about it than the person that you're about to hear, and that's John Burkhauser. So you really do have my promise at this time. You're going to really, really enjoy what you hear. All that I ask that you do is please sit back, relax. The fact that you're here tells me you have an open mind, which is going to be really good for today's conversation. So sit back, relax, and take a lot of notes. This is going to be recorded as well, so you'll all also able to go back and give it a watch later if you happen to miss a part or so. So with that said, thanks again for giving up your time and joining us today. And JB, if you're with me, I'd like to welcome you to the webinar.
Thank you very, very much, Bob Cooper of Elite. I really appreciate that. You always embarrass me with some of the things that you say, but I am glad that I can earn that and share whatever I've learned, why I'm earning that praise. So that's what I want to do.
You're more than welcome, JB.
All righty. So, folks, as Bob says, your time is pretty important. So what we want to do is get rolling forward. The idea behind today's webinar, and it is being recorded, so you're going to be able, once we get through it, 24 hours or less, you actually should be getting a link to it, and you'll be able to go over and watch some of the details that you might have missed the first time around. So we're talking about car count, and the question is more better? So, well, that's what we're going to approach, all right? So as I've traveled across the country for Bolt-On Technology, I've gotten to meet a lot of great people like all you fine folks watching this webinar, and I've learned something from every shop that I visit. But one of the most conversations that I have over and over is that what can we do to make ourselves a success? So through these conversations, I've covered the great spectrum of automotive service. And as I said, one of the most repeated discussions revolves around making a profit and being successful. Everyone seems to be looking for the magic bullet that will make this happen. And the one truth that I'm sorry to share with you is that there is no magic bullet. You will need to work towards the goals that you set, the goals that you want to meet. And I feel that there is many approaches to shop profitability as there is to shops. There are some basic steps that every one of us have to do and go through to reach our goal. So my question with this webinar is increasing car count a viable approach, and are there steps that should be taken before increasing car count? You know, in addition to these people that I've spoken out on the field, some people just stand right by it. More cars, more cars, more cars, more cars. And you know what? It may work for them, but before any of us jump on that boat, let's take a look at what's going on in the background. So more vehicles, more money, that's the question. And as you can see here, more is better. And to some people, it's basically their way of life. And I just loved it when I found this picture here. This guy looks really exhausted. I know, bad humor. Anyway, so we all know that more is better in the many things of life. No one will argue that more money, more days off, or even more dessert is a good thing. But, you know, I got to watch the dessert. I know you folks might too. But is a higher car count, more cars and trucks every day, the way to go to make your shop more profitable? Are there things that we should tackle first? So let's take a look and see what we can learn by looking over some of the pros and cons of car count. Got my cheat sheets here. So the service process, it begins And we all do it. We all have our ways of doing it and making it happen. All right, hang on a second. I got some concerns here. Hang on, folks. Let's see what's going on here. Making some adjustments. Thank you for jumping on board and telling me once in a while these things are. Can you see that there, folks? All right, thank you so very much for coming on board. Geez, you guys missed my joke, and that was bad to start with, wasn't it? All right, thank you so very much. I appreciate the input. Now we're up and rolling. So anyway, let me get back to it. You know, as I said, some people think more is always better. And as you can see here, there's my exhaust joke. Whoever put this bugger together, holy cow. But anyway, so let's carry on. So let's start with the service process that every vehicle goes through. Have you ever really sat down and see what your shop's workflow is, how your shop goes from the appointment to completion? Well, as we go through this, it may even inspire you to make some changes that when you realize some of the steps that you are actually doing today are holding you back. Now, audio, I'm getting concerned about audio with one person, and I'm sure that everyone else has been hearing us. So unfortunately, that one person's going to have to try to figure out what's going on. All right. Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm going to send a message out. Sending a message out. All right, cool. We'll get moving on here. Sorry again, just want to make sure everybody's on board. So anyway, the service process, folks, has a lot of steps that we have to go through. And one of the steps is, of course, up front, setting the appointment, getting that customer in, and also being able to handle those walk-ins, you know, and people that are coming in for you without any kind of plan, and working with them. And as you go through these processes and writing up a customer, all these things that we have to do at every car every day are something that we have to take a look at, because if we're not doing these things and not following through, we're going to find that this is going to interfere with the process of moving to more cars. So what you've been seeing here on the screen now that we've got it working is that this appointment begins with us actually appointments, this whole process, the service process, or walk-ins. And the first thing that we have to do is write our customers up. And how we go about that is going to be important to the overall efficiency of the process. After we get the customer written up, of course, we need to dispatch to the technician and get that technician out there. And if we're happy and we're using digital technology, our technicians can be more successful in finding what the issue is, because they can actually look it up prior to getting to the vehicle. So we want to be sure that as we're going through these steps that we understand these things. So the vehicle's brought in, it's set up on a lift, and I know a lot of you folks are probably sitting there, oh, this is really, you know, I already know this, but there's a reason behind this. The vehicle's brought in, it's set up every time, it's got to be disassembled, it's got to be inspected, it's got to have diagnostics due if there's any concerns, and we have to write those concerns or input those concerns into our system, copying off a paper, whatever it is. But with this increased car count, multiplying the overall number of vehicles going through these steps in your process, you open your shop up to more possible failures and liabilities. Missteps, bypass best practices, vehicle damage, equipment failure, and so on. All these things are something that's going to be amplified by the fact that you are now trying to bring in more vehicles. So you have to be careful with what you do and what you wish for. Okay, one of the examples I like to bring about, you know, talking about numbers and increasing your numbers bringing in. If you remember the old Apollo space program, they had over 6 million parts. All right, that's a lot of parts to start with. But even with a 0.1% failure rate, they could still expect up to 6,000 failures that would not interfere with the launch. Now think about that, you know, and everything on that craft was made by the lowest bidder. And the point that I'm trying to make is the more cars you deal with, the more parts you deal with, and even if you have the best failure rate, 0.1%, there's going to be more failures. And that's something that's going to interfere with your process of bringing more vehicles in. So after we get the inspection and the initial inspection checked, we're going to do our estimating and get together and talk to our customers. all right? And then we're going to wait for authorizations. There is a finite number of hours in every day that we work. So increasing car count basically decreases the amount of time that we have available for each vehicle. And the efficiency of how the shop goes through these processes, these steps that I'm showing, is going to determine the number of cars that you can actually handle. Yet no matter how well you run, the inherent variables of the service process will always need to be considered and figured into car count. And these variables, folks, include customers. When they show up, do they show up on time? How many appear? How many walk-ins you get? How much time do you spend to write your customers up? Diagnostics. Did you get it through it right the first time and find out what's going on, or did you get stumped? What's going on? Getting authorizations and ordering parts. All these things. Every time we go through this car process, these things change. So there's never, ever a fixed thing, though we have those basic steps. So the more vehicles that you have, the more variability needs to be considered. And when you're getting your authorizations with these customers, be it over the phone or whatnot, if you're still using paper, well, folks, you have to explain to the customer exactly what's going on. And that in itself takes quite a bit of time. So once the authorizations are gotten, all right, we're going to get that back in the shop. And again, there's paperwork to be done, et cetera, that has to be finished and completed. And when we miss any of these steps, that can cause problems. So the customer authorizes the work, and if you're going digital, they can do it by text. Service advisor has to now open up everything on the repair inside the computer system. Technician goes back to work, and of course, the service process is not done until we invoice the materials and put everything together and put that RO to turn it into an invoice and give it back to the customer. And hopefully, all of this ends up and us having a good customer, a happy customer picking up the vehicle. So every one of those pieces there, every one of us recognizes that there's many different ways that they can go right and many ways that they can go wrong. And we want to be sure that we keep that in mind. So a little bit of review. The service process has to be repeated for every vehicle because every vehicle has the process. Every vehicle's got to be written up. Every vehicle's got to go up in the air. Blah, blah, blah. You got the whole thing, right? And because of those basic steps, they got to go through the whole cycle. If we miss one of the basic steps, we know that we can have an issue. We got the authorization but never entered it on a repair. We never ordered the parts. There's all sorts of places where the situation can fall apart. So we need to be aware of that. And each step for each car has its own time. And I'm back to that business where did the customer show up at 7:30? When you called them, how long did it take them to get back to you to give you authorization? When you order parts, how long does it take to get there? Everything, and it's completely and infinitely variable. All right? So you want to keep mind of that. And if you have a shop with multiple writers, 2 writers, or even a single writer, every vehicle is going to be in the shop or sitting outside the shop, and they're all going to be at different points in that service process. So you are really doing yourself quite a job, and I have to give it to you. I know what it's like to be a service advisor where you have to somehow know everything that's going on. But that point with this is that if we start doing more and more of this, it can get a little hairier. So there's only so many hours in the day that we can do this. And, just like, why did I throw the clock out the window? Because I want to see time fly. Well, you folks know that every day time flies as it is now. So we want to be careful about considering bringing more vehicles in. I know the humor is not all that great. But anyway, to help you visualize what happens every day in a shop like yours, let's condense the service process into a basic line like you see on the screen here. We call this the service line, and each line is going to represent the complete visit from appointment to completion. So every vehicle needs to be written up. Of course, that's going to take varying amount of times. Every vehicle, these times will vary with walk-ins, waits, parts, et cetera, and the overall length of the visit that is represented by the line is going to make it longer if it's a long visit, shorter if it's a short visit, and a medium one just right if it's not so long or so short. But every day, this is what you're doing. And I want to show you here is the graphical flow of each vehicle service process throughout the day. We see customers dropping off in the morning at start time. And remember, there's night drops and whatnot, and also throughout the day. And each line has to have all those basic steps from write up, putting it in the air, checking out, etc. And the amount of time that the vehicle spends in this process is represented by the length of the line. So you're constantly balancing this. One point to be made here is that every shop has vehicles at different spots or places in the same service visit at the same time. And all these vehicles are overlapping at some point, showing a balancing act that all of your shops need to do every day. So this example here is for only 10 vehicles. Imagine what it looks like with more. And another way to look at this here is as a juggler. No matter how many balls that juggler he or she has in the air, they can only really handle 1 or 2 or maybe 3 at a time in their actual hands. So the more balls that you juggle, the less time there is to devote to each one, while at the same time having to keep track of them all. So this can get really hairy really fast. Somebody mentions that the green lines have no text, and I know that because I kind of gave you the idea what the green line represents, but thank you for letting me know. All right, so keeping track of all this is pretty amazing. All right, and the idea behind this here is that you got so much going on that you have to be careful of what you're doing. So the next thing to really consider, more cars, is the wear and tear on your equipment and your staff, and no one really seems to take this into account. That focusing on the tech, he or she has to get in and out, place on a lift, and possibly pull the wheels of every vehicle that comes in. There's a lot of physical work that's being done. And we know that over years, this physical work beats the technician's body up. You know, how many times can you look under a car, be on your knees, et cetera, et cetera? And if the vehicle we know is on that lift and waiting too long for authorization or parts, we know that we may have to assemble and put it back out and repeat that same process later. All of this adding up to wear and tear on the bodies of our technicians. You know, it's kind of silly. It's kind of like shampooing your hair, where it says on the label, wet, apply, rinse, and repeat. I mean, when do you end? I mean, how many times can you get a technician to put a vehicle up and down? How much time is invested and or used with that motion alone? The other thing that I want to bring to your attention is when they're doing inspections, okay, what is being missed? Okay, are they pencil whipping the inspection, as you may have seen on the screen here? All right, what are they avoiding? So once the inspection is completely checked and edited, the advisor is going to have to send it out to the customer, you know, or if this is an inspection that we're doing on paper, we have to put it all together and build our estimates so that our customer understands exactly what's going on. All right. So what are we missing when we do this? So when the text message comes through, the customer is going to look at it, or if you're talking to them on the phone, you're going to have to describe everything like that. If it's a digital inspection, they're going to be able to open the pictures and videos with a tap of the finger and see a larger view. It's going to make it easier for them to understand. But if it's a paper inspection, you have to spend the time explaining to that customer exactly what's going on. And that is another point that we have to think about when we want to add more cars. Going digital is going to make it a lot easier, but staying with paper is going to make it a bit of a problem. So what's being left on the table? So whenever we're performing a vehicle inspection, whether it's digital or on paper, it requires time. And more vehicles get less time. And that's going to result in incomplete inspections. Techs will focus on finding things that are more apt to make the money while paying less attention to other possible low-hanging fruit that, too, can make money for the shop, but they don't deem it to be important. And these items may be less costly for the customer to address today, and they're left to manifest themselves into bigger issues down the line. So when presented to a customer in the future, not only will the customer complain about the cost of these items that we let go, they may also question your inspection. So why wasn't this seen before? So watching shops doing inspections, one of the things that I've actually been seeing is how the technicians go right for the brakes. They go right for the easy stuff, the belts, the filters, and stuff like that. But as you may have seen scrolling across the screen here, is that they can be missing a whole lot of other things that are going to make us a lot of money. I mean, everything from exhaust issues to things that are starting to manifest themselves, things that are going to start, the brakes are okay today, but, we're going to be able to do them in the future. Or there's a leak, and that leak isn't so bad today, but it's going to be something worse in the future. And if that leak happens to be related to the cooling system or whatever, that's going to cause a whole lot of other issues. So how much of this stuff is being left on the plate because we're trying to rush through the inspection because we're doing a lot more every day? And of course, you'll be writing more repair orders. And this alone is going to dilute your ARO. And if you're not successful in selling or getting more work, that's going to take even more of a draw on it. So with more estimates and inspections, filling up the same workday, less time will be devoted to each. So to do this, the advisor is going to have to make decisions not to address items from each inspection. In essence, the inspection findings now have gone through another filter, the tech filter and the advisor filter, and more findings from the inspection are now possibly going to be cut. Worse yet, these items are going to get lost instead of becoming future recommendations for the next visit and a chance to get the customer back and ready to take care of these items. So think about this. The time that you're using for each inspection can be considered an investment in the future of the shop. It's an investment that can become a negative factor if the time spent doing the inspections is lost, since some of the findings are lost to the tech or the advisor filters and never ever offered to the customers options to keep their vehicle running smoothly. And there's the other thing. This is where you make that inspection the investment in the future, is by taking the recommendations, everything that you find today that's not going to be addressed or anything that's in the early stages and needing to be addressed, not adding these things as recommendations to the repair, to the invoice, and going over with the customer is where that investment is being lost. We want to start building a connection with the customers and bringing them back. But because we're rushing through, we're more apt not to do this. So more repair orders, more missed opportunities, lower ARI. Okay, so now here's the bottom line. You've already got the car in, you got it up in the air. Spending the time on it is what I'm trying to get you to understand. And that's one of the things that's going to be lost if you try to build your car, how many cars a day you have in the shop. And what I want you to understand is that you've already got so many cars in the shop. Are you really utilizing everything that your staff and your techs and everybody is doing and getting the full benefit from it? Because if you increase your car count and you're not doing that, you know it's going to be a problem. So maybe you say, hey, that's not me. My shop's better than that. And you decide that you want to raise your car count. Well, besides the inspection, besides everything that I've spoken about, the whole service process that you have to go through time and time again, here's something else that you really need to consider. The first question I'm going to ask is, where do these vehicles come from? We know that you're not just going to magically find them. They're not just going to show up. You need to reach out and find them. All right. So maybe you offer a cheap oil change with a free inspection at your shop on your shop signage. Maybe you send out coupons giving discounts, or you go all out and start an advertising campaign. Obviously, this all costs money. And the thing is, any advertising campaign that you might use, a 3% return is considered to be really great. So out of 1,000 pieces of mail sent out, 30 found their way and they came back to you, where the other 970 pieces went in the trash. It cost you money. All right. And I want you to understand that getting new or retaining current customers is extremely important for your business, because you're going to find that there's many statistics online that I'm about to share with you that bear this out. And the one statistic here that I'm showing you here is that you need to know that it's 5 times more expensive to get new customers as opposed to keeping your current customers. So that customer that's in the green here, they're happy and whatnot. You're going to keep them easily by keeping them happy, keeping them involved, showing them the recommendations. But the customers that are brand new are going to cost you 5 times more to get in the door. All right. And that's not the worst of it. At the same time, your existing customer base is 60 to 70% more likely to buy what you're selling, requiring less handling because you've already built a relationship with them and you're bringing them back to your shop for more and more service. The next statistic you'll be interested in is to know that even after spending 5%, 5 times the amount of time to gain a new customer, you only have a 5 to 20% chance of selling to that customer. So add this statistic to the new customers requiring a higher amount of time investment and get them from, let's try that again. So with this statistic, realize that every new customer you do bring in, you have to spend a lot more time. There's a lot more handling with them. So not only you're investing more to get them in the door and you're less likely to sell, but they are now taking up a lot more of your time. And again, this is another thing to consider if you're going to try to improve your car count. Statistics also tell us that businesses have approximately a 15% loss, 15% rate of customers leaving them on any given year. And the main cause for losing customers is bad customer experience. And of course, there's other causes related to this, related to life, customers moving, customers choosing another shop, customers losing licenses, and so on. All these things are going to affect your normal loss of customers. All right. So the good news is that instead of losing that 15, if you could reduce it down to 10 by stopping 5% of your loss a year, you can actually increase your profits by at least 25%. Why? Because you have a relationship with these customers. You've built trust between your shop and them, and know what? They may even like you. So again, bringing in new customers, because you got to expand your car count, it's got some issues. And here, statistically, you're going to see that working with your current population is the best way to go. As a matter of fact, when you start giving discounts, not only does bringing that customer in cost you, and that's part of that 5 times amount, but also you're going to get bottom feeders. You're going to get customers that are just going to come in for the sales prices and nothing else. And those aren't the people that we really want. So if we have a good batch of customers that we can bring back time and time again by using those recommendations and things of that sort, we're going to be able to make a higher car count work. So back to the question that we were asking, can having more vehicles passing through your shop result in more money? Well, the answer is yes. Okay, but there's some confusion here, and that's understandable because raising the car count is a viable way of raising your profits, but just like this guy here and me scratching the back of my head and trying to figure out what the heck's going on, it's not the only way. So have you seen, there's many other things that need to be addressed before going this route, and if not addressed, you may be working harder for less money, and that's not good. So in reality, I've already mentioned a number of things to look at and change that in of themselves will have a positive effect on your bottom line. The first step is to look at your complete service process and see where it can be changed or fixed. So setting the next appointment like a dentist. Again, you want to keep your customers because it's cheaper to keep them, right? So before they leave today, why not make that next appointment to get them back based on the recommendations and things that you found in today's inspection? So that's one point that you want to do. Meet and greet the customers. Go to the vehicle and do what I call show and sell. Now, I understand weather conditions, just like Bob was saying, I think Bob said earlier, was nice where he is. Here, we've just been around 10 degrees, and some of you folks are below 0. You're not going to be able to meet and greet a customer every day. But the point is, the days that you can, you go out there and use that vehicle for show and sell. That's going to build your customer relationship, your customer trust, and it's going to build your ARO. Thorough inspections. I feel that it's pretty impossible to get a thorough inspection when it's done via paper. And the suggestion here is to go to digital inspections. I ask you, please reach out to anyone that you know that is using digital inspections, because you're going to find out through them that the inspections being done digitally, sent to the customers where they can actually look at it and go through it, and being able to talk to your customer over the phone while you're looking at it is going to make all the difference. But there's another piece to that puzzle too. Those recommendations, all right? If you're recording them and keeping them in front of your customers, that's going to help you get them back. And also, because they know what's coming, they're less likely to say no. And lastly, on this slide here, eliminate paper. Think about this. How much time do you spend when you write up a customer and you're printing it out and getting the signature, and then you send it out to the shop and the tech writes on it? And I'm one of the worst writers in the world. I write up this darn thing, you get it back, it's chicken scratch. Now you have to call me and get me back, and we have to go over and look and see what I wrote, what I'm suggesting, and all that stuff. And then you got to do your estimate. You got to put it in a computer. You got to call the customer up and do that. And you know what? When it comes back, you have to re-enter a lot of the OKs and authorizations back there. And then you're going to print out this paper. And besides the fact that all the time you're spent handling the paper, where the heck do you put it when you're done? And the other weakness to paper and paper inspections is it's very difficult to go back and pull a previous inspection to show your customer what you told them before was almost due and that they need it now. That makes it very difficult. Putting the inspection findings in your customer's hand is yet another point. Trying to describe a customer, that something's leaking or seeping or whatever, that's a story into itself, okay? But getting the inspection from your customer where they can actually look at it and see and watch the progression of the brakes wearing from new to getting there to needing, watching the tires wearing from new to getting there and needing, retirement, et cetera, all that right in their hands, and they can go back and look at these inspections as they're looking at the new one. And stop wasting your time by the phone. Did you know, on average, just dialing a number, and we have 10 digits here in this area, dialing a number, letting it ring through, and going to voicemail, you've already wasted 30 seconds. And many people don't listen to voicemail anymore. Matter of fact, when you make that call, how many times do you get the message that it's full, or it's not set up, or whatever else that you can't leave a message? Or even better, you spend all your time, you leave a message, and not 10 seconds later, a customer calls back and goes, "Hey, I saw you call." And they never listened to the message, and now you have to go through all that again. So communicating by text is going to eliminate that, because the average text is not only looked at, but it's responded to in less than 3 minutes. Building that history, showing that customer the wear and tear at the tires, showing that customer the wear and tear on the brakes, that seat now becoming a leak. All these things that you can bring in front of the customer and keep in front of the customer, they're going to build a history. They're going to be able to come back and take a look and say, "Hey, last time you told me it was seeping, or now I see water, I see water underneath. Is it leaking now? Can you check that out?" and things of that sort. And that's going to build trust, because it's no longer going to be a surprise. It's going to be something that you can talk to a customer on a regular basis about. And this here, I think, is a really important point. You see some people, some techs, especially new techs and whatnot, they're going to look really busy. They're going to be running around and doing all sorts of crazy things and stuff like that. And they're getting the job done, but even though they look really busy and they're moving really fast, you find that they really don't get things done faster. And that's the difference between a new tech and an experienced tech, because an experienced tech now is actually overall going to move slower, but they're going to get just the same or more done because they're efficient in what they do. So keep that in mind when you think about setting up your car count and building it up. And this is one of the main points here, that since every vehicle has to go through the whole service process from appointment right up all the way through to looking at parts, etc., why aren't we making the most money out of each vehicle? Why aren't we making the most out of the time invested? Because many people are spending a fair amount of time doing inspections at quote unquote no charge, but every one of them is costing you. So we want to be sure that we make the most out of each vehicle and get that low-hanging fruit, as I mentioned earlier. Get the stuff that's right there and easy, not just the filters and the brakes and things of that sort. Start looking around. With the average age of a car being over 11 years, there's lots of things that need to be addressed. So, first steps. The first steps is removing the roadblocks and tightening up your service procedure in of itself to make your shop more efficient and result in better success. After you address these items, you can get when you get your shop up and running and smoothly like a well-tuned engine. Then I would say raise your car count. So that's kind of the purpose of what we're trying to do here. Is the fact is to spell out how many things that you already have in front of you that you can change or fix. And just doing those things, not increasing your car count, but just tightening up your ship, using a digital inspection and paperwork, everything that I've mentioned here is going to change. And also with a company like Elite on your side and coaching you, they're going to be the ones that help you see these things that I've brought to your attention, and they're going to help give you a plan on how to take care of them. And the funny thing is that if you use these steps and realize these things and tighten up your service process, get rid of the paper and do everything we're describing here, you're automatically going to see your car count start to grow on its own because those customers are naturally coming back. You're setting them up for that. So without even knowing it, by doing all that process and all the things that we're recommending here and bringing to your attention, that you're going to increase your car count. And you know what? You will be able to handle that increase. So eliminate those roadblocks to your success. You've got them. They're there. Recognize them and do it. And I know it's not easy. This is why Bolt-On Technology and Elite are providing this series of free webinars to help your shop. And hopefully, we want you to see that life can be better at the shop and better at the home. And Elite will take a look at your operation and coach you in the better ways to profits. Bolt-On Technology at the same time will give you the tools that Elite's going to be showing you to use. I mean, instead of doing it manually, you do them automatically. And Bolt-On's going to give you the technology to help you succeed by automating many of those industry best practices that you will learn from Elite. And if you find that these webinars are helpful, or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to both either Elite or Bolt-On Technology. And as a reminder, a copy of this webinar will be sent to the email address that was used to sign you up. Also, look for an invitation to our next webinar in February. And know that our combined technology and coaching with Elite will raise your shop to greater success. And thanks for joining us. So the bottom line, folks, take a look at all those things. Take a look at your service processes and whatnot. Take a look at the use of paper. Is it what's holding you back and what you can do to change? And as easily as talking to Elite or Bolt-On, we can make that happen. Thank you very much for your time. I wish you have a great day. And take care. Happy New Year, by the way. Even though it's a couple of days old, it's still a New Year. All right, folks. John Burkhalter from Bolt-On Technology signing off and saying thank you for your time. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and let us know.